Good evening, Niner fans. How we doing? Happy Sunday. As we know, the 49ers and the rest of the NFL had an NFL draft this weekend. Today was the first day after the draft. Hopefully everybody enjoyed their Sunday, got some rest, and maybe actually got out of the house for a little bit. For me, 3 days straight live streaming, watching the draft. I needed to get out, so that's what I did today. And again, I hope everybody had a great day. But yeah, let's talk about the NFL draft. It's in the books. Now we get to look forward to the schedule release, which is in a couple of weeks. OTAs and training camp's going to be around the horizon. And now we're excited to see, these new players be implemented into the 49ers and how much of an impact can they make. We'll talk about that as the, months go by and the season gets started and once training camp goes. But, let's kind of sit back, reflect on this draft, share each other's thoughts. I don't know what you guys thought, but at the end of the day, I feel like we did a good job with this draft. Overall, my grade, as you know, yesterday we were talking about it, give it about a B, maybe close to a B plus. I think they really got some players that could become starters in the future. Some really good talent, some guys that could probably be starters immediately. If you really look at this roster, and some guys that are really going to give some competition to the rest of the roster. Defensively, they added two defensive backs. They added Bernardo Green and Malik Mustafa, who two guys are really physical players, and I liked what they bring to the table. We'll talk about them, but let's go pick by pick. Make this pretty quick. I won't sit here for too long. We'll go down the picks, and you guys share your thoughts, and we'll kind of bounce some ideas back and forth, or some share some opinions back and forth. So the first round pick the 49ers have had in 3 years was a wide receiver, pick 31. A lot of rumors were surrounding what the 49ers were going to do on the first day of the draft. Were they going to trade? Were they going to trade Debo? Were they going to trade Ayuk? And reports were saying that they had been fishing offers. They've been calling other teams. Other teams were calling them. And ultimately the 49ers just didn't get what they were looking for in terms of a trade. If they were going to trade one of those guys, it had to be a lot, because both of those guys mean a lot to the 49ers roster. Debo Samuel, we know how much he means to this team, and Brandon Ayuk, we know how much he means to this team, and the future of Brock Purdy. So 49ers didn't trade Brandon Ayuk or Debo Samuel, thankfully, and now they're going to be able to work out a contract extension for Brandon Ayuk. And, the second day of the draft, John Lynch said they didn't even entertain it. They didn't even entertain the trade talks. And once the first round got over with, I think we were pretty much out of the clear. That's what I had figured. If the 49ers were able to get out of that first round without a trade or without big trade talks, then we knew it wasn't gonna happen the rest of this, draft process. Because let's be honest, if Brandon Ayuk's not getting a first round pick, I don't think the 49ers were gonna trade that pick. And Debo, if they weren't getting a very high second round pick, I don't think they were gonna do the trade either, because Stephon Diggs, he was able to get a second round pick for the Bills, and I think the 49ers were probably looking for that. And I don't think they were able to get any one of those compensations in return. So the first pick the 49ers made was Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver out of Florida. I think this was surprising because everybody was expecting them to go defensive lineman, because they always go defensive line, right? First round. Everybody wanted to take an offensive lineman because we all want them to upgrade the offensive line. And then we also thought they'd probably go cornerback, because there were some really good cornerbacks available. Kool-Aid McKinstry, Cooper DeJean. Like, there was a lot of talent at that board. So I feel like people thought they reached, and people were not happy with this pick initially. But as you kind of start digesting it, you have 2 nights to sleep, 3 nights really to sleep on this pick. I really enjoy this pick. At first, I was like, I don't know, maybe a C grade. The more I think about it, this is like a B plus pick. The guy is very talented. He's a great route runner. He's physical. And if Debo gets hurt, which unfortunately he does get hurt in the season, you throw in Ricky Parcell, he can run a lot of the stuff that Debo Samuel can run. Now, I'm not saying he's as good as Debo, but he's very versatile, which the 49ers love versatility. So he's a guy you can plug in there. He can run the slants. He can run the out routes. He can run, those deep routes. He could run a wide receiver screen. He could do your jet screens. Whatever you need him to do, he can do it. And he's very, very physical. He will block just like the 49ers want him to. So I see like Kyle Shanahan drafted this guy. He's kind of like the receiver he always wanted to be. He's the guy that Kyle Shanahan always wanted, kind of saw himself when he was in college. So I really like the pick. The more I seen him, the more I seen him talk, his vibe. He's pretty fun, man. He seems like he's just really energetic, and I think he's gonna fit in this roster well. So I really like the Ricky Parcell pick, and it wasn't bad. Again, I think initially everybody was very surprised that they went for this pick because it was an offensive lineman, it wasn't a cornerback. Cooper DeJean was sitting there, Kool Aid McKinstry. And, I don't think we necessarily needed a wide receiver, but there was also a lot of rumors in where they're going to trade, Brandon Ayuk and Debo. And I still think that, yeah, part of this draft pick was maybe they were thinking a trade was going to happen. But you also got to realize in the future, 49ers will have a lot of free agents. Jawan Jennings is going to be a free agent next year. Will he be back? I don't know. Brandon Ayuk's contract's big. Debo Samuel, we love him, but maybe they won't get rid of him this year. What about next year? And, the return team, the return game is going to be a little different this year, so maybe they could use this guy as a return man initially. And behind Debo, Brandon Ayuk, and Jawan Jennings, the depth isn't really that good. Danny Gray, he hasn't, hit his full potential that we expected. Ronnie Bell, he showed some flash, but I don't know if Ronnie Bell's going to be special. They got Chris Conley, he's a veteran, but it's not like he's going to be giving you elite production. And then you also have, Trent Taylor. Is Trent Taylor going to make the roster? I know he's George Kittle's best friend, so he'll probably make it because of the connection, but will he really be productive? So honestly, it's not a bad pick if you look at the depth of this team. And it doesn't hurt to give Brock Purdy another weapon. If the Chiefs sit there and they add weapons and we get mad at the Chiefs for adding weapons, then why can't the 49ers just stack weapons to their offense? They were the number one explosive offense last year, and now you added another explosive guy. So in the long run, this is going to be a pick that helps Brock Purdy and his development. So I don't hate the pick, but was it a reach? Possibly. Again, there was Xavier Legette, which people think is probably a better prospect. There was a lot of other talent on the board that the fans wanted him to get. So again, was it a reach? Time will tell. It's hard to gauge it. We'll see how the 49ers use this pick. But I think because of the fact that the 49ers, had some needs and not necessarily a wide receiver, and there was some talent on the board to fill those needs at that position. I don't think that, a lot of the fans were happy initially. But again, it's Niners draft board. It's their grade. It's who they see fits their team. You can't really judge it until these players play. So and I don't think Pearsall would have been there had they, made their second selection in round two at 64, where they traded back to get. So I think they knew there was going to be a wide receiver run, and there absolutely was. Buffalo traded back, they took a wide receiver, and a couple teams after that took a wide receiver. So I think the 49ers knew this was the guy they wanted, right? This is the guy they wanted to fit their team. And honestly, I don't think they would have got him had they waited. And, one thing too, if you remember when the 49ers traded up to get Brandon Ayuk, it was the same thing. A lot of people are like, oh, why are they taking BA? A lot of receivers in this draft, but it was the receiver they wanted. And they knew other teams were going to take receivers at that point. So they had to get the guy that fit their system. They've been doing this for a long time. So I feel like they understand what fits their system. But a lot of people are going to hate on Pearsall. A lot of people say he's soft. He's like a Dante Pettis, this, that, the other. But honestly, trust me, I remember watching Dante Pettis very, very, very vividly. And Pettis was very soft. He was a finesse type player, and he wasn't a blocker. I've seen a difference in Pearsall. I watched a lot of Florida football. He had three quarterbacks. He played with some bums at quarterback, and he was putting up production. He played at Arizona State with Brandon Ayuk when Pearsall was a freshman, and he's kind of built himself throughout the years. He's gotten better every single year, which is what you want out of a player. The guy's a dog. He's physical. That's the difference that separates him from Pettis. Pettis was a cat in all intensity. The guy was so soft, and that is the difference. Pearsall is physical. He's not afraid to take catches over the middle. Pettis alligator arms. If he went over the middle, that bro was running from any type of contact. That's not Pearsall. So I think that's the key difference. Is Ricky is not afraid to get hit. He's a physical guy. So people that say he's like Dante Pettis, I don't think they ever watched Ricky Pearsall play. But okay, it is what it is. So honestly, I thought it was a better pick than I initially thought. When I sat here when I first saw the pick, I was pretty surprised as everybody else. Nobody, not a single person had Ricky Pearsall on their draft board. I don't care if you sat there grinded the tape, you were scouting play. I don't think I saw an analyst, podcaster, content creator. Saw nobody put this guy on their draft board or on their mock draft. So To be honest, nobody saw this coming. We were all surprised. Again, there was a lot of players that we all thought they were going to get that they didn't. So a very surprising pick, but at the same time, I think he might become a fan favorite pick if he can live up to the type of receiver Kyle Shanahan envisions him, and we'll see. So second pick, the 49ers had of the eight, a cornerback at pick 64 from Florida State, Renardo Green. They traded back with Kansas City. They gave Kansas City the ability to go at 63. They took an offensive tackle, Kingsley Sumatea, who a lot of people wanted the 49ers to get because, they want to upgrade their line. And I'm not gonna lie, at the point at this draft when this happened, I was going crazy. I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it! They traded with the Chiefs. How are you gonna let them get better?" And they drafted a good offensive lineman, and that's gonna help them. It's gonna help protect Mahomes, which in a way it sucks. But I was listening to Bill Belichick, and he says you can't worry about other teams. You have to worry about yourself. The 49ers needed a strong press man corner. They needed another slot guy, and they got him in Renardo Green. I thought this was a fantastic pick. I gave it a B plus. He's physical. The only problem I don't like about it, he is small, but if you're getting a slot corner, they're all pretty much undersized guys. Like you remember Kwan Williams, very small, but he it was solid in the slot, one of the best slot corners in the league over the last couple of years. When he was in his prime. So Renardo Green, very physical, very, very, very versatile. He's kind of like a Jimmy Ward guy, and they missed that versatility when they had Ward. From when they had Ward, he wasn't there last year. Obviously, he went to the Texans, but Renardo's a dog. He's one of the best press man corners in college coming onto the Niners. You can move Lenore inside outside, or you can put Renardo in the slot as well, depending on how you want to use him. So a guy that can be thrown everywhere. He can play safety too if you need it. Although 5'11", I hope he maybe sticks to that slot spot. This guy very physical. Really, really love him. A good tackler too. Very, very underrated player. I mean, he's not perfect, but he was a solid player in terms of what he could do in man coverage. And one of the things I noticed after watching some film on him is he's not afraid to take a receiver and try to be aggressive. And that's what you need. I saw his draft interview and he says he loves the 49er secondary because they're savages. They hit hard. That's what you want. You want a guy that's not afraid to take risks and be aggressive. You remember watching the Seattle Seahawks game last year and Mooney Ward was getting in the head of DK Metcalf. He was physical with them and he frustrated him. And that's the type of corner we need. A guy that's physical, that's going to get in your face. And, he's got that dog mentality, like junkyard dog, kind of like Dre Greenlaw, right, at linebacker. He's not afraid to yell and hit you hard. Diamond Lenore, right, against the Eagles. Remember, he, boom, gave Swift the 1-2, and that hit was probably the biggest hit of the NFL season last year. Like, that's the type of guy Renardo Green is. And, again, he's not afraid to take a hit. So, unbelievable type of physicality. I think he fits this defense, and I think with Nick Sorensen as the defensive coordinator, that's what he wants. He wants physicality. He was a secondary coach back in Seattle a couple years back. When they had the Legion of Boom, so he knows about very physical, strong, aggressive corners that are going to hit you in the mouth, and that's what the 49ers defense is all about now. And now with Nick Sorensen as the DC, I think that makes sense that he's going to get a very strong physical press corner type cornerback. I like him. I like Renardo Green. Honestly, out of all the picks, he was my favorite pick, actually. This was my favorite draft pick. I was so excited. We got him. Uh, I know a lot of people wanted Kool-Aid McKinstry. A lot of people wanted Cooper DeJean. They wanted the names. They wanted the names, right? But hey, at the end of the day, a guy that is versatile, he fits the system, and he could play outside, inside. I think that's why the 49ers took a guy like this, Renardo Green, a guy that they can kind of move around because you don't know, what the future holds. There's a lot of free agents coming up at the end of this season, so you got to plan for the future, and it's not just a pick for this year. You got to realize they also don't have a lot of depth. Darrell Luter, he was a rookie last year. He had a lot of injuries. Sam Womack, second year last year, he had injuries too. Ambry Thomas, a lot of people don't want Ambry Thomas back. So this was a good pick, I think. They needed a cornerback, and now it gives them a guy that can kind of play wherever they feel like he can adapt to. So um, definitely love the pick of Renardo Green. So I think people are gonna love this pick. Honestly, out of all the players the 49ers drafted, I think this might be the guy that becomes an immediate starter. Like he's going to become an immediate starter because again, that slot cornerback spot is still up in the air. We don't know who's going to be the nickel, and I think this guy's going to take it um, and make it his position. I'm super excited about this game, and he shut down a lot of receivers playing in college last season. Malik Neighbors, he clamped that boy when they played LSU. He put the clamps on Malik Neighbors. I tell you what, man, this guy. Let me tell you, when he played Malik Neighbors, he put that man in straight prison. He put him in prison. He shut that man down, and it was a fantastic thing. I'm telling you, last year's stats were pretty good. He had 363 coverage snaps, 13 pass breakups, 22 yards allowed a game, not too much. 16 forced incompletions. He had an interception and only 3 touchdowns allowed in 363 coverage snaps. So I like the pick. Shut down Malik Neighbors. I mean, holy smacks. He took 75% of his snaps in press man coverage. That's a lot. This guy is a man coverage machine. Man, I'm telling you, he is a dog. I think he is going to be our pretty much favorite player on a lot of teams. I'm telling you, I think a lot of people are going to love this guy next season. So we'll see how it goes, though. After that, the 49ers made another selection in day two, and it was an offensive lineman, the first offensive lineman they drafted this year. And I think everybody wanted them to draft every pick as an offensive lineman, but they couldn't, of course. And it was Dominic Pooney, Kansas offensive lineman. Now, this guy, he could play anywhere. I saw his post, he spoke to the media. He said a lot of things. He had a message for Niner fans. I think I posted it on one of my pages, and he basically said, "Look, I could play center, I could play guard, I could play tackle." He says, "I'm here to win a Super Bowl. This guy could do it all." If you want to talk about versatility, Pooney is that guy. He's tough. He's big. He can move. He ran a fast 40. I mean, this guy for his size, I mean, this guy is big. He's the offensive lineman. I think that could take over Colton McKivitz. He could take the right guard spot. He could take Jake Brendel's spot. Literally, he could play anywhere along the line. A guy that I think they really hit on. I hit this guy as a B draft pick. I mean, third round pick. You don't know what you're going to get at an offensive lineman, but I think they got a good one here. I think he's definitely a guy that could come in and start if he really does well in training camp. Colton McKivitz. A lot of people want to upgrade from him. So he could play that right tackle spot, but he could also play interior lineman. I think John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan said their initial plan right now is to play him inside, but of course, see what he can do in training camp and how he adapts to the game. He's got to learn the system. He's got to understand the concepts. But this guy is a mauler, and one thing about this guy is he's a good pass protector. There was a couple of things that they had said last year. He didn't allow a single sack and 343 pass blocking snaps in 2023. That's a pretty damn good stat. No sacks allowed. He had zero QB hits allowed as well. He had a 90.4 pass blocking grade last year. I know PFF grades don't mean anything, but it's it is the measure we have to go by. And if you look at the film, if you look at his skill set, I mean, to have no sacks and no QB hits allowed in 343 passing snaps, that's pretty damn good. So honestly, a very underrated pick. I think he could become a starter. So I think you had Renardo Grade could become a starter, and Pooney could be a starter immediately in year one, and he could be a fixture on this offensive line for many years. If they're able to, extend Aaron Banks next year, boom, you got Aaron Banks and Pooney, two really solid players that could be on your offensive line for many years. But again, Aaron Banks, we'll worry about that next year. He's going to be a free agent next year. And if he has a season like he did last year, a Pro Bowl caliber season, he might price his way out. So then Pooney could take his spot. You know what I mean? So they're planning for the future, and they're also making sure that they get some guys that could come in immediately and have some impact. So I love the pick. Thought it was good. Was there better options? Could they have gotten other guys? Yeah, I mean, yeah, there was a lot of other offensive linemen but I don't think they wanted to reach. I think Roger Rosengarten was a guy that they might have had on their board. They spent a lot of time looking at him, but unfortunately, he was drafted before the Niners were picking. And then they traded, the draft pick for the Chiefs, and they took Samatea. So we'll see if they made the right decision at offensive lineman. But there were a lot of players on the board, and I know a lot of people were very critical on the 49ers on passing on offensive line, but they couldn't reach, and at the same time they still got a very talented offensive lineman in Pooney. So I think they did a good job on day two. I think that pick right there was fantastic, and I think Renardo Green and Pooney right there was a very nice haul on day two. So I don't know. I thought they were good picks. I know a lot of people are gonna hate on the picks, but at the same time, again, we don't know how they're gonna pan out. They might be busts. They might be really good starters. So we'll see how things go. But I did like the pick. I did enjoy the 49ers taking those two guys in the second round. I thought both of them have really good film, and I'm excited to see what both of those guys bring to the table. So I don't know what you guys. My man Zay says need a draft for this year, not 2025. Worry about next year. Well, yeah, you know what? The 49ers build their team through the draft more than anybody. So I'm gonna trust on what they do. I feel like they know what they're doing. They drafted a lot of guys last year that could come in and step in this year. D. Winters, Jalen Graham, two linebackers that could probably step in this year. And you can never have enough depth. And I think the 49ers, again, they did draft Renardo Green, who could start, and Pooney, who could start. So they did, in a sense, draft for this year. But it does take drafted players 2 to 3 years to really hit that ceiling. So yes, these guys could come in and make some impact right away, but their long-term value is what's going to be better for this team in the long run. So it's hard to say you just draft a guy right now, you want immediate results. It doesn't work that way. Some of these guys need a little seasoning. Some of these guys need a little time to really hit their stride. But I think they did draft guys that could come in and start right away. So the draft is a crapshoot, says 49ers throwback. Absolutely. I think the draft, you never know. I mean, it's like a box of chocolates. You really don't know what you're going to get, right? You could get a stud, you could get a bum. We could sit here and act like we know about every single player, 262 of them, and we could sit here and say we know what's better than the the scouts, but we don't. I don't think we know any better than anybody else. So there's literally over 200 people that get drafted every single year, and to sit there and say that every player is going to be a bust or this guy's going to be a bust, it's so hard to call that. It is a crapshoot. So we'll definitely see how things go the rest of the season. So after that, the 49ers drafted round day three. The 49ers had three fourth-round picks, and the first of them was Malik Mustafa, safety out of Wake Forest. This guy's a thumper. He can hit so hard. And you know what? I think this was a solid pick. They definitely needed a safety. Talanoa Fungus coming off an ACL tear. Will he be 100%? I don't know. Jair Brown, second year in the league. He looks like he's going to take that leap, right? That's what we're expecting. To Gibson, he has not signed a contract to come back. Last year, he was rumored to retire. He hasn't come back yet. So I feel like they absolutely needed a safety. This guy, give him a year. I think he could definitely be a starter. He could probably start away this year if he has to. If Hufunga misses time, he's definitely going to be in the mix for special teams. This guy is a pass thumper, one of the best, most efficient tacklers in college last year. He was also, very good against the run. He's very polished. He's kind of like Talanoa Hufunga, but actually he has a lot better coverage skills. This guy has a lot of range, tall, or he has a lot of good instincts for a safety. So I like this pick. I thought this was probably just as good as the Renardo Green pick. Those two guys, the secondary players they had drafted were absolutely steals in my book. This guy looks like a gem. Again, first fourth round pick they made last this draft. He was pick 124. Malik Mustafa. This guy, and John Lynch called him on his on game day or draft day. Obviously, the draft day calls, and he told him, man, he goes, I was so impressed with your interview at the combine more than anybody. So John Lynch loves this guy. John Lynch was a former safety himself. So I think if John Lynch gives you the stamp of approval and you're a safety, that's it, man. You've got it made. He said he was his favorite interview at the combine, and he also Mustafa during the that draft day call, he said that he grew up a Niner fan. So can you imagine growing up watching the Niners? You love the Niners. You get drafted by the Niners. Dream come true, right? So I love that for him. This guy looked very excited when he did get drafted by the squad. Definitely a guy that I feel is gonna really work hard, get that chin strap buckled up, and come to work. He seems like a blue collar guy. I gave this another B on this one. I think every pick was about a B, most likely. Again, I gave this whole draft class about a B, but I thought this was one of the better picks too. Fourth round, you get a guy that could probably start in a year. Definitely enjoyed this pick. So the 49ers 2024 says, I hope all is well. Ricky Pearsall is a bit of a reach. He played mostly in the slot. I'm skeptical of this pick. Yeah, a lot of people are skeptical of this pick. Again, a lot of people thought it was a reach. Again, because there was a lot of talent on the board. But I feel like the reason the Niners got Ricky Pearsall was, again, a versatile guy, a guy that could come in and maybe replace Debo Samuel down the road. This guy could come in, he could play inside, he could play outside. And that's kind of what Debo does. He doesn't necessarily play on the outside. He plays inside. He plays the bubble screens. He does like the motion stuff. I feel like the 49ers drafted Pearsall to be like Debo's a future replacement. To put it, I don't want to lose Debo, but eventually you're going to. He's not getting any younger. I feel like Pearsall is going to be the guy they're going to teach to be that do it all wide receiver. Because if you watch the press conference after John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan after that first day, they said it, or Kyle Shanahan specifically, he said he could do it all. He could do it all. He could do it all. That's what he says about Debo, that he can do it all. He's a versatile guy, and I honestly think that that's the type of mentality Kyle sees with Pearsall. But yeah, I know a lot of people are skeptical of him. So, second pick on day 3, round 4, the 49ers traded up. Now, this one had Kyle Shanahan written all over it. This guy, Isaac Garendo, Louisville running back. He first played for Wisconsin, transferred, went to Louisville. This guy ran a 4.340, a 4.3340. Holy smokes. This guy is quick, home run hitter. Now, a lot of people are saying we don't need a running back. I know, they drafted him in the fourth round. They picked him at 129. They had to use both of their fifth round picks. They took their two fifth round picks, gave it up because they said, we need this guy. They gave him to the Eagles. The Eagles were trading with everybody. They made I think 9 trades on draft day. But they traded up. They got Isaac Garendo. I think this is the Elijah Mitchell replacement. We all love Mitchell. We know he can do stuff, but the problem is the man can never stay healthy. I think Isaac Garendo, his speed is a guy that's going to sit there and be able to help complement CMC, give him some time off. CMC carries the ball like 30 times a game. Give him a few plays off. And I think one reason maybe they don't give him a lot of plays off is obviously nobody on this roster at running back is as good as CMC, but Elijah Mitchell's a liability. He gets hurt when he carries the ball a lot, right? Jordan Mason, who I love and I think he's really good. I think his limitation is pass blocking, pass protection. So I feel like Kyle's like, well, if you can't pass protect, if you can't block, we can't give you the ball a lot, right? We can't have you in the roster at certain points. So Mason has to improve his pass protection. Who he's a very good runner. He's a very hard worker. But this guy Isaac, if he can pass protect and he can stay healthy, his speed, his home run threat ability is going to place him on this roster, and he can do really good things. So Elijah Mitchell, he needs to count his days. He needs to learn Cantonese because he might not be playing for the Niners. He might be playing overseas soon enough because that man can't stay healthy, and it's unfortunate for him. But I like the Isaac Garendo pick. Kyle Shanahan we knew he was going to take a running back at some point in this draft. We all thought it was going to be in the third round, but nope. Kyle Shanahan said, I need to get my running back. Traded 2 picks, went up, guy Isaac Garendo. We'll see. He's definitely Elijah Mitchell's replacement. So yeah, I like the pick, but it was funny because the day before when they asked Kyle Shanahan, and he was laughing on KMBR, like they were gassing him. They were like, I can't believe you wore a suit. And what's the plan? You're gonna draft a running back in the third round, the fourth round? And he was laughing at himself. He goes, yeah, we're gonna draft a running back in the third round. He's not gonna pan out. And he did draft a running back. I was like, oh man, he really did it. So death taxes Kyle Shanahan drafting a running back in the mid rounds. You knew it was gonna happen. Like if they didn't draft a running back in the mid rounds, I would have been shocked. And he did it. He's definitely going to be a guy that probably makes this roster and has a big impact if he can stay healthy, because I think he's taken Elijah Mitchell's role and they want Elijah Mitchell to do work, but he can't stay healthy. So I feel like Isaac Garendo is the guy that's going to be that guy. So we'll see how it goes. But it was definitely not a surprise that they took a running back, but it was a surprise they traded up that much. They traded 2 fifth-round picks, and the 49ers crushed the fifth round typically, right? They're a fifth round pick machine, and they didn't have any fifth round picks this year because they had to get Isaac correct. Kyle had to get his running back, right? And then they finished up round four with the wide receiver Jacob Cowing out of Arizona. I like this pick. Sneaky pick. A lot of people are freaking out because they don't need a wide receiver. You drafted a wide receiver in the first round. Again, they're looking for the future. They're getting guys that can add elements to this team. The punt return, kick return game is a lot different this year. They added that. Not only that, but again, Jennings is he. We don't know if he's going to be there next year. Ronnie Bell, will he pan out? Will he take a next leap? I don't know. Will Trent Taylor make this roster? I don't know. Danny Gray, his days are numbered. That man's probably going to get cut. So they got competition. And at the end of the day, even if they don't make the full roster, maybe they make the practice squad. You always need depth in case of injuries. But Cowing, man, this guy has some nice, nice shiftiness to him. It's an interesting pick. And then Niner fans were sick to their stomach because they didn't draft Brendan Rice. But honestly, I'm telling you what, man, Cowing, I think, is a better player for the 49ers system because he's a yak type guy. He's slippery after the catch. He's going to be able to get you those yards after the catch. He can do the screens, the slants, all the stuff you want a Niner wide receiver to do. And honestly, Brendan Rice for the 49ers would have had too much pressure on him. I think he wouldn't have had the role he needs to succeed. I'm happy for Brendan Rice going to the Chargers. I think that was the perfect place for him because he could be a wide receiver too and get a lot of volume in terms of receptions and targets. That's what he needs. I think it's a dub for Brendan Rice. I'm happy for him. I don't think he would have succeeded with the Niners. He doesn't fit their system. I like Cowling, solid pick. And he is a good route runner. So let's see. After that, the 49ers had to wait until round six. Didn't have any fifth round picks. As we mentioned, they traded him up for Isaac Garendo, who I thought was a B. Jacob Cowing, I'd say a B minus. I like the pick. I don't hate it. But at the same time, this wide receiver group is a logjam. Will he even make the final roster? I hope he does. But if he's good and then you have to cut him, he might get picked up by somebody else and then he can't make it to the practice squad. So that's the only issue I have is he got a lot of wide receivers on this team. Who the hell is going to make it at wide receiver? They have 11 wide receivers right now, but it's a 90-man roster. That's typical. It's not like, oh my God, they have 11. Nobody has 11 wide receivers. This is pretty much average. But at the same time, if he doesn't make the roster, that sucks because they are stacked at wide receiver right now. BA gets a roster spot. Debo gets a roster spot. Jennings gets the roster spot. Ricky Pearsall gets a roster spot. Who else is making it? You got two more receivers that are probably making it on this roster. Is going to be Cowing, okay, and then Ronnie Bell, okay. That's six. What happens to Trent Taylor? What happens to Conley? Right? What happens to Danny Gray, et cetera, et cetera. So, um, we'll see. And then you had, I know we're not gonna get to all the undrafteds today. I'm gonna go over those tomorrow, because I'm just gonna go over the draft picks. We'll do a whole another stuff tomorrow. I got a show tomorrow with Ted, and we'll talk to him. But yeah, Terrell Owens' son, Tariq Owens. That was pretty cool, man, to see Tariq Owens, the legacy pick. Everybody wanted a legacy pick, and 49ers, they delivered. It wasn't Frank Gore Jr. People cried. It wasn't Luke McCaffrey. People cried. It wasn't Brendan Rice, and people cried. But it was Tariq Owens. Terrell Owens, his son. He's a UDFA undrafted free agent. If he makes this roster, the hype is going to be absolutely real. I was happy for the man. And then, Terrell Owens posted about it on his Instagram, and he was very excited and very proud of his son to get the opportunity. Doesn't mean he's going to make the roster. No, just because his dad was a Niner legend doesn't mean he can make the roster, but it means he gets an opportunity. And if he makes it, that's a hell of a story. So I love the pick, man. Appreciate you, California, man. You like the Wolverine shirt? I can't wait for the movie, Wolverine Deadpool. But let's get back to the picks. The 49ers did have a six-round pick. They drafted at pick 215 offensive lineman Jarrett Kingston out of USC. I don't know. I didn't really love the pick. I'm not going to lie to you. We definitely needed an offensive lineman. He's a big boy. He played, I think, at um, Washington State before he went to USC. He transferred over. I'm happy they picked an offensive lineman. Do I think he's going to make an impact right away? Probably not. I hope he can make the roster and start. I think at this point, you just start taking the best available player or somebody that you can add to this roster and maybe compete for a spot. They needed offensive lineman. Bottom line, they had to take an offensive lineman here. You needed to take a lineman. Now he can at least compete with guys like Nick Zakel, Jalen Moore, and everybody else that's on the roster. He's not going to be a starter. I don't think we drafted this guy for a starting position, but they needed offensive line. So you get him. You hope he develops. You have Chris Forster there. Let him get to work, and pray to God he can at least be a serviceable lineman. But to me, this was probably the worst draft pick of the lot. I mean, there's 8 picks, round 6. You're not drafting a stud. Again, late round picks could be good. Maybe he might be a great guy. I don't know. But obviously, to me, if I had to grade all the players, which I'm going to, he was the worst of the bunch, in my opinion. I gave him, maybe I'm gonna be nice and give it a C minus, but hey, maybe he's good. But I didn't see him do much great things at USC, and before that, again, he wasn't like an elite offensive lineman in college. But hey, they needed depth, and now they got depth, and now he can go and compete and earn a roster spot. Go to it, kid. He'll probably make the practice squad at the end of the day. So I don't think he was that great of a pick. But that's my pick. That's my opinion. The last pick 251, 49ers, round 7, they took a linebacker. If all else fails for the 49ers, you get a linebacker or a defensive lineman. They didn't really necessarily need a linebacker, but it's nice that they have one because last year they drafted 2 really solid linebackers, D. Winters and Jalen Graham. They have Devondre Campbell, who they added in free agency. They have um, Demetrius Flanagan Fowles, who they returned. You got Fred Warner, the GOAT, and you also have Dre Greenlaw. But Greenlaw is coming off an Achilles injury, and I don't know how good he's going to be when he comes off that injury, how healthy he's going to be. Will he be Dre Greenlaw of, what we know and love? I don't know. So it's not bad that they drafted a linebacker. They took Tatum Bethune from Florida State. This guy kind of looks like a very, very hybrid type guy. He reminds me of Aziz Al Shahir. Bottom line, this guy's game looks a lot like Aziz Al Shahir. And I don't hate the pick. I love the pick. They do have a lot of linebackers, so I don't know if he's going to be able to make it and start or even have much of an impact right away. But it's a 7th round pick. You draft him for the future. You develop him. Johnny Holland, the linebacker coach, is fantastic. He knows how to make linebackers be good. So at the end of the day, you get this guy, stash him, develop him. Maybe he'll be a special teamer this year, but I think the future for him looks good. If you remember, Aziz Al Shahir was an undrafted free agent several years ago from FAU, and they turned him into a stud. So I feel the same type of vibe out of this guy. Right now, I'm going to give it a C. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but it's a C. He's not going to compete and give you a starting position right away, but he's going to give you depth. And again, Dre Greenlaw's injury is a big question mark. You need depth and somebody that could come in and start if somebody else isn't able to and capable of, if depending on how the competition goes in training camp. But I don't hate the pick. I thought he was a very underrated player. He's your last pick of the draft. You're not expecting to get a superstar, but they did in Brock Purdy. He was their last pick a couple years back. So yeah, a good player, good depth, a guy that could compete down the line, maybe become a future starter. Reminds me of Aziz Al Shahir. Um, I didn't hate the pick. Thought it was solid overall. So yeah, nice pick. You need depth. Linebacker is a position where the 49ers definitely know how to develop. So um, solid pick. If all else fails, just draft a linebacker if you're the 49ers or a running back. They can develop those 2 positions pretty darn good. My biggest surprise is the 49ers didn't take a defensive lineman. Can you believe it? No defensive lineman. They got an undrafted guy who they paid a lot of money for, and he did a front flip into the pool after he got drafted. I believe his name is let me I think it was Evans. Let me see. Dude out of FAU, big boy, Evan Anderson, UDFA. So this is a guy that they really like and should have maybe at least a practice squad designation when everything's all said and done. But surprising, 8 picks, not a defensive lineman drafted. Kind of crazy under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. But if you really think about this offseason, they took all their defensive linemen and bolstered that through free agency. Yatir Gross Matos, Jordan Elliott, Malik Collins, and Leonard Floyd. Four defensive linemen were added in free agency. They re signed Kevin Givens, right? So it's not too surprising if you understand what they did in free agency. They addressed their defensive linemen, so they didn't have to really add them in the draft. But when you sit there and you go through a whole draft and the 49ers don't draft a D lineman, you're kind of like, what's going on here? What's going on here, guys? A lot of people were surprised at that. I was too. But then, you go back to free agency and you understand, oh, yeah, they addressed their defensive line in free agency. So, um, my man Red Eye, good point here. He says I heard the Niners said no guarantee Huff gets his starter position back depending on how his ACL goes. Yeah, again, and that's why the pick of Malik Mustafa was actually very important. And they were looking for safety help all offseason. If you remember, they were linked to Julian Blackman. They were linked to Justin Simmons. Those are guys that they could have drafted or signed in free agency, but they couldn't guarantee them a starting spot because they don't know what Talanoa Hufanga is going to return to. Is he going to be 100%? Is he going to be his old self? And that's why they had to make sure they got some type of insurance for Hufanga. So that's why the Malik Mustafa pick was very, very important. But you're right. Who knows if he's going to be a starter? It's a good point. Will he be back to full strength? I don't know. I hope he is. I really missed Hufanga in this defense last year. I think he could have been a missing part, a missing key in that Super Bowl, but we'll never know. So, yeah, my man Red Eye says Mitchell and Danny Gray are gone for sure. Handed in their resignations for them. Lynch accepted. I agree. If I had to make any predictions, I would definitely agree that Danny Gray and Elijah Mitchell are out of this place. So, but yeah, I think overall a good draft. Um, Time will tell. It's hard to grade a draft when we haven't seen these guys play on the roster. Hopefully, they can all start and contribute, but you never know. Hopefully, they can play and be parts of this team as the seasons go on. Some guys are drafted for the future. Some guys are drafted and they can start right away. I think we got three potential starters, right? You got Renardo Green, we got Dominic Pooney. I think Malik Mustafa could be a starter, and I think actually we got four because I think Pearsall could be a starter, maybe not right away, but I think they're going to make sure this guy gets a lot of action in the roster. So, end of the day, it wasn't a bad draft. I think they could have done a little better here and there at certain positions that that we may have thought they would have went for. Like you could have address the offensive line maybe before Pooney. You could have got the cornerback, at your 31st pick. So maybe they could have went cornerback, then wide receiver. But again, they liked Pearsall. That was a guy that was high on their board, and maybe it wasn't all high on our board. Like maybe they could have got Xavier Leggett, or maybe they could have got Cooper DeJean, and then another wide receiver after that, right? So it's hard to say what the perfect combination was, but these are the guys they liked. We'll see how they pan out. I'm excited to see them get to action and get to work, and hopefully they can make us proud and be, a good contributing factor to the Super Bowl run that we want to make. But if they suck, I'm gonna hate them, just like everybody else. We'll see. Right now, I like them all because they haven't done anything, so we'll see. Um, My man Red Eye says Mostert, such a high value player. You get another 2-year extension and doesn't make more than 4 to 5 million years. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, Mostert is doing well. And the 49ers, their undrafted players typically go crazy. Like, look at the years. That's why I'm excited about these undrafted guys. They had some really, really, really good undrafted players through the years. We all know, right? Kendrick Bourne was undrafted. Mostert was undrafted. Matt Breida was undrafted. Emmanuel Mosley was undrafted. Aziz Al-Shahir was undrafted. Among the players, 49ers have a good track record in undrafted players. And this year they got, so these are their undrafted players. They got Tanner Mordecai, quarterback from Wisconsin. They got Corey Schrader, running back from Missouri. This guy, I was shocked that we got this guy. I can't believe he wasn't drafted. Missouri running back. I feel like every week he was on a highlight reel on Sports Center. Drake Nugent, this guy, center from Michigan. I can't believe he didn't get drafted either. This is a gem type of pick. Yesterday on Twitter, Ed McCaffrey was raving about this guy. Said he coached him back in like Pee Wee football or Little League or some shit. Tariq Owens, all right, Missouri State wide receiver, the son of Terrell Owens, was undrafted. I'm hyped. I think everybody was hyped about that. Evan Anderson, FAU defensive tackle. He looks like he could be the next DJ Jones. This guy was signed. They drafted a tight end, Mason Peline from Furman, the Paladins. Larry Kruger loves this guy. He looks like Adam Thielen. Like he looks like a young Adam Thielen. I like this pick. He might be tight end too. He might be our tight end too because the tight ends they drafted last year, I'm not gonna lie to you, they're not too great. And they also got another offensive lineman from Southern Mississippi. Sorry, Breason Mays. We'll see. I don't know much about this guy, so I'm not too excited about him. And they also undrafted uh, Vanderbilt defensive back Jalen Mahoney. This guy, pretty good. I thought he would actually get drafted. So we got a guy that could potentially be at least a practice squatter and then eventually, develop down the line. So I think the 49ers out of Mahoney, he's probably going to be on the practice squad. I think P-Line might make the roster. I think Evan Anderson might make practice squad. Drake Nugent might make the roster. Tariq Owens might be practice squad. And Cody Schrader, I don't think he makes the roster because we're deep at running back, but I think he could be a practice squatter right away. So pretty interesting. So I love it. I think that the Niners did a good job overall in this draft. I really like the undrafted players. See how the rest of the season goes. You guys have a good rest of your night. We'll be live tomorrow with my boy Ted. Monday, we usually go live at 1:30 p.m. Pacific. We'll be live with you tomorrow. I hope you guys had a good weekend. Appreciate everybody for tuning in tonight throughout the week during the draft. I hope everybody enjoyed the coverage. If you didn't, I'm sorry. I'll try to do better next year. You guys have a good rest of your night. I got to make dinner. I got to go finish my laundry. It's Monday tomorrow. You guys have a blessed day. Go Niners.